direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Samuda, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malawi Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Warrington, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terry Long, Ms. Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brownberg, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Staley, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Mr. Hutchinson, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright.
Statements by ministers.
Madam Speaker, it's intended to have one statement today by the Minister of Education and Youth, the member from St. Andrew Eastern. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Minister, do we have a copy for your opposition call?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we head into the Christmas season with all of its festivities, I want to pause to give thanks for all the many blessings, despite the news and the videos we've seen on social media of unruliness and sometimes death that confront us in some of our schools from among some of our students. Madam Speaker, I'm grateful for this Christmas term and the chance for our students to continue to be in school in the face-to-face environment. We know this would not have been possible without our school boards, our principals, the senior management team, teachers, support staff, the work of the Central Ministry and its regional arms, and of significance, all our parents who continue to invest in their children's education. Madam Speaker, we are pleased to report on the progress of our Sixth Form Pathways program that 24,238 students are enrolled in grades 12 and 13 across, yes, Madam Speaker, 24,238 students are enrolled in grades 12 and 13 across pathways 1, 2, and 3 in 167 secondary schools and 42 tertiary or post-secondary institutions. Our students are enrolled in all of our regions, namely Region 1, Kingston and St. Andrew, Region 2, St. Thomas, Portland, St. Mary, Region 3, St. Anne, Trelawney, Region 4, St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, Region 5, St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Region 6, St. Catherine, and Region 7, Clarendon. Madam Speaker, 24,238 students in our Sixth Form Pathways program is historic. It has never happened in Jamaica before. Our students are choosing education, Madam Speaker, and they are to be commended. And there's a table on the chart up there that's showing. It breaks it down by region, secondary versus tertiary for both grades 12 and 13. And you can see how as you look across the island, you can see. Madam Speaker, after the pilot in 2019, we formally launched the Sixth Form Pathways program, or 7-year high school, in September 2020 to allow our students to graduate from our secondary schools with one or more of the following: an occupational associate degree, certificate or a diploma within an occupational discipline, an accredited Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica or University Council of Jamaica, UCJ, associate degree, CAPE subjects, either diploma or certificate, or the CAPE associate degree, national vocational qualification for Jamaica, and or Caribbean vocational qualifications at level 2 or 3. And as you know, Madam Speaker, the Caribbean vocational qualifications allow Jamaicans to work anywhere in the Caribbean. Dual certification in CAPE Associate's degree in Industrial Technology and City and Guilds Engineering Level 3. Additional entry-level qualification as CXC or City and Guilds. Support towards the first 2 years of Teachers College in pursuit of a bachelor's degree in teaching. These can be pursued or are being pursued on our Pathway 1, which is our traditional program or CAPE program. That's the the sixth form, lower and upper, traditional program that we know. Pathways 2 is our technical pathway. Pathways 3 is our general pathway for students who want to attain maths and English and skills certification at the CSEC, National Vocational Qualification Jamaica, or City and Guilds level. Madam Speaker, Sixth Form Pathways program ensures our students have the National Vocational Qualification of Jamaica certification. We're ensuring employability. We're ensuring personal and professional development along with career guidance. The beauty of these many pathways, Madam Speaker, is that a student coming in on pathway 3 can aspire to be in pathway 1, which is the traditional pathway. Before now, the traditional CAPE pathway may not even have been a thought for those students. Guidance counselors and career coaches continue to work closely with our grade 11 students to determine the pathway they will pursue in the Sixth Form Pathways program. From as early as March in each year, students will do their pre-registration for Sixth Form Pathways program and be supported to transition seamlessly into further studies rather than enduring the pain of the extended period of uncertainty and lack of opportunities that face the majority of our students if they leave school after grade 11 at the tender age of 15 or 16. Madam Speaker, for decades, the traditional CAPE Sixth Form was funded by the government, but only a few could access it. Now, every student leaving grade 11 has the opportunity to benefit from government support for the furtherance of their education, not just some. This is a thrust at equity, an undergirding principle of our education system and every modern democracy. Madam Speaker, the government this fiscal year is investing approximately $1.5 billion for grants for operations, staffing, materials, among other things, in our secondary schools to include exam subsidy for the Sixth Form Pathways program. So what are we expecting the Sixth Form Pathways program to deliver? Increased certification, higher skilled human capital coming out of our schools, increased entrepreneurship and business development, better interpersonal and problem-solving skills, better communication skills, better conflict resolution, higher order critical thinking. The Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica is the accrediting agency for the Sixth Form Pathways program occupational associate's degree across our tertiary institutions and will provide the quality assurance, or has been providing the quality assurance for the program. Our technical development officers monitor and ensure the quality assurance at the secondary level. Madam Speaker, the Sixth Form Pathways program brings hope to many of our students who would have graduated from grade 11 with reduced opportunities. Our Sixth Form Pathways program is a paradigm shift, Madam Speaker, for the education sector and the development of human capital in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, we are changing the course of history in Jamaica. Sixth Form Pathways program, 24,238 strong. Our children and our parents are choosing education. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I know a number of my colleagues would like to ask some questions as well, but I will just respond on behalf of the opposition in thanking the Minister for this update. She has been quite dogged in relation to the Sixth Form Pathway program, and the number on the face of it seems impressive. I want to say, Madam Speaker, there is an objective in mind, as I recall from the Minister's earlier pronouncement, and I intend to focus primarily on the Sixth Form program because it is a means to an end. And the end must be to see more of our young people moving on to do universities, to do tertiary level training. And so the first question has to do with that. Can we see, it's now 2 years, we started in 2020, so 2022 we should have seen the first cohort, having done lower 6 and upper 6. Now matriculating for tertiary institutions. And I'm not sure, Madam Speaker, if we can trace those accomplishments as yet. And I'm wondering why. So probably the Minister could update us on the performance of your first cohort in terms of CAPE passage and whether or not there are special incentives to enable not just enrollment, but it would be good to know what is the attendance so that persons are not only enrolled, but they do attend classes, and it would be important to get an idea as to the average where that is concerned. Of the number, probably you could also indicate your PATH program students who might be involved here. Because, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure the PATH students will be taken care of, but I still do get requests from many, many students in my constituency for assistance, for tuition assistance, for sixth form. And, Minister, it is probably still not yet known throughout the system that you do provide free education at this level. That is, parents are not required to pay. They can make contributions if they can afford to. But I'm still sensing that it is not universally accepted because I get so many requests for such assistance. Madam Speaker, I am aware of the role, and Minister, I'm aware of the role that sport play in enrollment, because many schools now do want to benefit from older age students performing at Champs, Manning Cup, etc., etc. And I'm not going to comment on the trading that takes place inter-schools, because we know that there has been a practice done more by some than others. And I'm not pointing at my colleague over there, who used to be a QC, but is now KC. But Madam Speaker, it is all well and good for our students to perform well in sports, but I'm sure the Minister of Education values a lot more their academic accomplishments, especially because we want to see them into universities, we want to see them get their bachelors of law, masters, and so on and so forth. I know I have 10 seconds left. So Minister, if you could just explain to this House really where this enrollment is coming from, where has there been consistency in attendance, the budget that has been outlaid, and whether or not we are achieving the bigger target of enabling our people to achieve tertiary level education. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you for your questions, Member. We're in the early days of the program, but the numbers that the 24,238 are recent numbers. So those are of children who are in attendance in the program. We are tracking, but we don't have definitive numbers just yet. One thing I did notice from the numbers, these current numbers that I got, was that more students now are on the Pathways 1, which is the traditional CAPE pathways, than ever before. I can't explain why just yet. We're delving in. We're asking the questions, why are we seeing more, which is good, which is absolutely good. And we're seeing students on pathways 2 and 3, but that's a phenomena that jumped out at me. Maybe it's the additional support that government is providing, thus allowing more students to be able to afford, more parents to be able to afford the traditional pathway. But we will continue to track, of course, and in subsequent statements, I'll come back to update the House in terms of where are children matriculating to when they go through the 2 years program.
Minister, a couple of questions. As a follow-up to what my colleague asked, can you state definitively whether students in the pathway program are required to pay any money at all to the school, or whether the government covers the full economic cost of the program? I ask because a number of schools had raised concerns about the lack of available funding, for example, to expand classroom space, to take on additional teachers, etc. So if you could just state definitively whether this the government's contribution fully covers the cost and no student should be required to pay. Secondly, could you indicate how many students matriculate from fifth form on an annual basis, so we have an idea of what percentage of the total are enrolled in this Pathways program? And then third, has this replaced what used to be called the CAP program? I think you used to have CAP 1 and CAP 2. Does this replace what CAP used to do? And I know CAP used to be available in community colleges as well. Is this taking the role that CAP would play?
Okay, I'll start with your last question. CAP is now mainstreamed into the sixth form Pathways program, so it doesn't exist outside of that. In terms of the cost to parents, parents still have to continue to make an investment in their children. Parents have to pay the bus fare, buy shoes, buy books, and so on. So there's an investment that's required of parents. The government is providing to schools a subsidy, as I said, for teachers, for things that they need to ensure that the program runs well. We have not required any of our schools to add additional spaces. Before we started this program, we did a space audit, and across the education system, both in our secondary schools and post-secondary schools, tertiary institutions, there's more than adequate space for persons desiring to do the sixth form Pathways program. We went through an elaborate mapping process. So if you wanted to remain at your high school and there was no space at that particular high school, you were mapped with a school that's close by or within good range for you to go to. We are not requiring schools to be building new classrooms or anything like that. We're using the existing infrastructure. Obviously, there's an incremental cost associated with it, which the government is providing. But at this time, as well, we're asking parents to invest alongside the government in their children.
All right. Just so I'm abundantly clear and the House is clear, I know parents will have to pay bus fare, lunch money, etc. That is expected. But I just want to be clear. Is it that, if you want to call it the tuition component, is it that the government covers that fully, and then a student the school should not be asking a student who is in Pathways to be paying a fee towards that? That's what I want to be clear on. Not the other incidental expenses which all parents have to contribute. I just want to be clear on that.
So for Pathways 1, which is the traditional CAPE Pathways, we have allowed those schools that normally provide that program the flexibility because they normally charge for those programs. So in addition to the subsidy that government gives them, we've said you have the flexibility. But for pathways 2 and 3, the government provides the tuition for that.
Is there, for example, a band within which you would say a school can't charge more than, just for argument's sake, $20,000 for the year for tuition component, or does the school have the discretion based on its own cost to determine what it would charge to the student?
The latter, for Pathways 1, the traditional Pathways program.
And then my other question, which you didn't answer, could you indicate what is the total number of students who leave fifth form on an annual basis, so we have an idea how many are enrolled in PATH of the total number?
All right, so just rounded numbers. I mean, I don't have the very specific, but rounded numbers annually. If you look at fifth form students who graduate, it's probably about 35,000. So to have 24,000 children moving on to grade 12, it's significant. Traditionally, if you look at when we only had the traditional Pathways student, the traditional CAPE program, only about 8,000 children go towards that, and others had to find other things wherever they could find it.
Announcements.
Madam Speaker, the details of the critical report from the PAAC having not been quite ready, bearing in mind, Madam Speaker, that the PAAC was asked to meet this morning and we're trying to facilitate the debate later on, I beg to move that the House be adjourned for 5 minutes so as to allow for the completion. No. It's ready? Yes. Is it ready? But he's saying the report is ready. The printing. So, Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the House be suspended for 10 minutes? 5 minutes. I'm advised 5 minutes is acceptable. May it please, Madam Speaker.
Members, the question before the House is that we do suspend the sitting for approximately 5 minutes to facilitate the printing of the report of the PAAC. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House is now suspended.
How do bills become law in Jamaica? Laws are made to create order, to ensure our safety, and to protect our rights against abuses by other citizens, organizations, and even the government itself. A bill is a proposal for either a new law or for a change to an existing law. Jamaica's Parliament is responsible for making our laws, and that responsibility is shared between two houses. There are 21 parliamentarians appointed from both political parties to the upper house, also known as the Senate. And there are 63 members of parliament that we, the people, elect to the lower house, also known as the House of Representatives. To pass a law, there is a minimum of 6 stages required in each house. The process can begin in the upper house by a senator or in the lower house by your member of parliament. And their proposals for a new bill can certainly start with you, the citizen. Now, since the process often begins in the House of Representatives, let's start there. 1. The first stage begins with the introduction by the minister responsible for the bill, followed by the first reading of the bill by the clerk to the houses. This clerk is more like the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer for the Parliament. An announcement of the bill is published in the Gazette. This is a public newsletter that the government uses to inform the citizens of what the Parliament is doing on your behalf. 2. The second reading begins with a summary of the bill by the minister. The main reasons for the bill are discussed both by the government and opposition members to determine if Jamaicans would really be better off with the new law or changes to an existing law. A vote is taken by the House to determine if the bill will move to the committee stage. Sometimes before going to that stage, the minister responsible for the bill can recommend the use of a joint select committee. It's called joint as its members are taken from both the upper and lower house. To benefit from greater consultation, the committee is empowered to invite the public to share their views of the bill in writing or in person, and does so through radio, TV, and newspaper adverts. This joint select committee submits its recommendations to the House of Representatives. The House debates this report, and a vote is taken to determine if the bill should go on to the committee stage, where it is examined by a committee of the whole House. Yes, that's the name. And that's what it is, a committee of all the members of Parliament that carefully examines each clause and makes improvements to ensure the bill will achieve its objectives. As chairman, the Speaker of the House monitors the process to make sure the rules of the House are obeyed and the process moves along smoothly. 4. The committee of the whole House examines the bill clause by clause, then sends its recommendations for changes to the House of Representatives. This is called the report stage. 5. The bill then passes to the third reading to allow a final opportunity for MPs to make changes before it is sent to senators in the upper house. 6 to 10. In the upper house, the senators go through the same steps we just described. If any changes are made, the bill has to be returned to the House of Representatives for their discussion and approval. Now, if the bill had started in the upper house, it would also have to be returned to them for approval of any changes made by the lower house. 11. Throughout the entire process, the bill is being checked by the Legislative Council. That's the Parliament's lawyer. But before the last step, a copy is sent to the Attorney General of Jamaica for final review and certification. 12. If all is well, the bill is sent to receive the royal assent from the Governor General as the representative of the Queen, Elizabeth II. The bill is now an Act of Parliament. The Act is gazetted, and the rights of Jamaicans are further preserved and protected by a new law.
There is a fundamental and irreconcilable conflict between the interests of the tobacco industry and public policy interests. The tobacco industry, for profit, produces and promotes a product that has been scientifically proven to be highly addictive and causes millions of deaths per year. This is in conflict with the intent of public policies, particularly those related to safeguarding the health and well-being of citizens. In keeping with Jamaica's treaty obligations, the proposed Tobacco Control Act makes provision for the strict regulation of the interaction between public officials and the tobacco industry. Strong tobacco control policies, such as the provisions in the proposed act, will safeguard public health policies and give the next generation a chance to live and breathe easily.
Do you wish there were a way your community could get funding to improve a school, health center, sports program, and more? There is! It's the Constituency Development Fund. Here are a few things you probably didn't know about the CDF and how you can make it work better for you. The CDF policy promotes citizen participation in community development and protection of taxpayers' funds. It outlines that MPs are to meet with citizens at least once every 2 years to agree on the projects needed. You know, it used to be once a year? We should really go back to that. Projects developed without community consultation are not to be approved by the bipartisan CDF Parliamentary Committee. There are 26 government agencies that implement projects, usually for a small fee. Funds are provided directly from the Office of the Prime Minister to the implementing agency, not through the Member of Parliament. The CDF unit monitors project costs and implementation, so if you have questions about how the CDF are run in your community, contact them. To ensure no one project or community gets all the funds, there are 6 project categories with spending limits for each. There must be no less than 5 and no more than 20 projects each year. To learn more, visit jampja.org to view your MP's CDF info and tell them how this fund has impacted you. If you don't see your MP's CDF reports, then put them under little pressure, man. Call, tweet, email. Ask them when they'll submit it and when is the next CDF meeting. Change is possible. It's already happening. What we need is you. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Let us resolve our family disputes peacefully. A family is a circle of love, support, and strength. Violence has no place.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Laid on the table of the House today are copies of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, copy of the report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee on its deliberations on the Second Supplementary Estimates of Expenditure for the financial year 2022-2023.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees. Member for Manchester Northwestern.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House of Representatives on its deliberations on the Second Supplementary Estimates of Expenditure for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023.
Notices of motions given orally.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House I will move, be it resolved that the report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House of Representatives on its deliberations on the second supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023, which was laid on the table of the House on the 7th day of December 2022, be adopted. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Questions and answers to questions. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sittings of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, the second supplementary estimate of expenditures for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023 was laid on the table of the House on the 6th day of December 2022 and referred to the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House of Representatives for consideration and report. Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the clerk and the clerk of the committee and the members who at very short notice enabled the meeting to be held this morning. The second supplementary estimates provides for the reallocation of $30.4 billion from the contingencies provision of the Ministry of Finance and Public Service to ministries, departments, and agencies to facilitate implementation of the new compensation system. The amount being transferred represents the estimated costs of implementing the new salary structure for some of the employee groups paid from the consolidated fund. In addition to the $30.4 billion reallocation to cover the new salary structure for employees who are paid from the consolidated fund, a one-time provision of approximately $1.7 billion has been included in the supplementary estimates to assist the University Hospital of the West Indies of $1 billion and local authorities of $717.7 million to meet compensation obligations under the new compensation package. Madam Speaker, some of the findings and recommendations coming out of the deliberations, members sought clarification on a number of matters. How many bargaining groups have not completed negotiations with the MOFPS? The Finance Ministry had reported that 17 bargaining groups had completed negotiations. The MOFPS regarding the new compensation arrangements, but the Financial Secretary added that another 2 groups had since signed on, increasing the number of groups that had completed negotiations with government to 19. The FS further noted that there were 20 groups that are yet to complete negotiations, including groups representing teachers, the police, and doctors. What portion of the $30.4 billion represents retroactive payments? Members of the committee queried the percentage of the supplementary budget attributed to retroactive payments. We were advised that approximately 63% of the $30.4 billion represents retroactive sum for the period April 1, 2022 to November 30th, 2022. Members also asked if there were owing statutory obligations of any group. Members queried whether the Ministry of Finance and Public Service was owing statutory obligations for any group of public sector workers. The FS noted that the Ministry had provided the amounts required for statutory obligations for all central government entities, and if there are any outstanding obligations to be paid, then it would emanate from the particular ministries, departments, and agencies. How are the salaries of parliamentarians determined? Madam Speaker, through you to the Minister of Finance, that was took up some time in the committee, where the question was raised as the bargaining group that negotiated on behalf of parliamentarians. The members of the committee expressed the view that it was expected that parliamentarians would have been provided with information. And it is something that came out of the committee meeting, where members felt that even though there's no particular group negotiating on the parliamentarians' behalf, that even to get an idea of the scale, where on the scale it is that parliamentarians would fall. Parliamentarians, the committee felt that we were outside of the category, even though it is politically charged, the whole issue of parliamentary salaries. But seeing that parliamentarians are going to be dealt with last, seeing what the parliamentarians have to deal with on a daily basis, because there's a feeling out there that parliamentarians are given fuel to go to their constituencies, where bulk of the parliamentarians are rural MPs, that we're compensated for the toll that when we do assist constituents, that there are funds out there that parliamentarians can dip in, and it is their salaries that have to take care of the fuel that they have to use to go back and forth to constituencies, and the various. That it is unfair for members within the House not to be able to know the scale of where they're going to end up, better off, worse off. They're only taking the word of you, the Minister, that we will be better off. But that can't carry to the market or carry home when they have to go to their families to say that they are going to be any better off. So it took up quite some time of the committee this morning. But I think that the absence of knowing where on the scale within the civil service itself that parliamentarians are going to fall is somewhat, for the public sector, is somewhat having them at a disadvantage in how it is that they plan their own affairs. So it is something that the minister needs to. But also came up in the committee meeting, Minister, was a compensation for drivers, which you said that there was going to be some adjustment. But we know that the adjustment for the drivers, for members of Parliament, who works 7 days a week, is not going to be linked to the drivers within the wider public sector. And they too would like to know on where the scale. Because, Minister, when rural members of Parliament who have drivers, many of them drive themselves to Kingston, especially when they have a meeting on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, because they have to put up those drivers out of their own pocket, put them up overnight. Many, if not all, members of Parliament inside here have to find an extra sum on that poor salary that those drivers have. But I also want to make a case coming out of the committee meeting for our secretaries. And I gave the story. I gave the experience that I had. I had a secretary that worked for me for 7 years, who worked for the member of parliament before for 20 years who died, and the only thing that she could get was the $90,000 that NIS would have given any NIS contribution for her burial. And the recommendation, it is a shame. It is. But the recommendation, just like members of parliament who after 2 terms become pensionable, that the secretaries, once they are there for that same period of time, ought to become pensionable also. If the members of parliament are, and the other, and no, but it's as serious, because I said, who feels it knows it. Jackie worked for 27 years in the office of the member of parliament. And when she died, there was nothing for her or her family to get. And she's doing as much work as we are as member of parliament, because without those secretaries in the office, there will be no member of parliament. There will be no member of parliament. Right? So, while you're looking at the drivers coming out of the committee, we are asking that the secretaries are not left out of the negotiations and salary. The committee also questioned the duration of the arrangement of the salary arrangement. The committee queried the duration of the current wage settlement, and it was informed that by the Financial Secretary that it was for a period of 3 years. Recommendations coming out is in the interest of transparency. The methods by which salaries of parliamentarians are determined should be made available for public scrutiny. That was a recommendation coming out of the committee. So, Madam Speaker, again, as chairman of the committee, I want to thank the members who actually turned out for the meeting. And Minister, it is one of the best turnouts I have had. The committee members were disappointed when they heard that they were not in the Christmas. So they all turned out thinking that they were going to be a part of the compensation coming for Christmas. So most of them stayed back, you know. Right? So, no, we are not. And I want to thank the clerk of the House, the clerk of the committee, and the committee members, and the members who all took part in the committee meetings. As I said, Minister, another committee had to be put off this morning. We were notified yesterday that the committee was. So that's why I have to publicly thank the members and hope that even when it doesn't have to do with that supplementary estimate, that we get the turnout that we did. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, at the request from the member from West Kingston, I'll make a contribution to the debate.
But from West Kingston doesn't need help, so you make it on your own behalf.
He did ask for it, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, I just want to support the points made by the chairman of the PAAC this morning. It was a very frank discussion. Of course, as indicated, the main element in the supplementary was, as the minister pointed out in the House yesterday afternoon, and that was not controversial and was dealt with. But in dealing with the public service, which is what it was all about in the main, except for 2 agencies, university and yes, it was essentially the public service. The matter of the compensation for parliamentarians. As I shared with some of the other members, I have been around for a while, aware of how sensitive the matter has been throughout its duration and up to now. And you are faced with that, Minister. But the fact of the matter is that if you hide from it or dodge it, you still have to deal with it. So it's a matter of just kicking the can down the road. An experience I've thought that it's best to, one, as was suggested by the chairman in the committee, be upfront, be transparent with it, because the MPs can't be compensated privately or secretly. It is going to be out there. Get it out there early. Let the discussion start, and so it can be dealt with myself. Because it's a bit of guilt that you are who they serve and you are the representatives, and we would have left them in that situation whenever we move on later on. So it would be, as I say, I feel guilty if we don't. That's why I always add my voice to this effort. Again, it is sensitive, but if we delay it, it put more mental pressure on that group of persons, because they don't know what will become of them. Every single day that it is delayed, it makes it harder for them mentally, because the amount that they are going to get is not an enormous amount. So if that becomes uncertain, it makes their worry even deeper. So I want to plead to you, Minister, even if you don't deal with the MPs right now, deal with those two sets of persons, just as how you deal with. No, even if, no, I really feel strongly about it. That group, you know, you said something, Minister, in a couple of weeks ago when you were speaking on this matter, and asked about when the parliamentarians will be dealt with. You said you took the approach that let us deal with who we serve before we deal with ourselves. I remember that very clearly, and I could appreciate the merit of that point. Treat the drivers and the secretaries as those who serve us that we must deal with first, just as though we are dealing with the rest. So in closing, I'm not saying that you must exclude the members of Parliament, but you have a choice in terms of ordering them. Deal with that group of drivers and secretaries as a matter of priority, along with the rest of the public service. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the two members who preceded me, because they have taken on this pet subject of mine in relation to drivers and secretaries. But I'm also aware, and I think it's a golden opportunity for the Minister to clean slate and start afresh. I'm aware that our orderlies who serve us here are not pensionable. Yes, they fall into the same category. These are people who work endlessly, people who work for years, and I am making a special appeal for our orderlies to be dealt with.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, you know, as I listened to my colleagues on that side, I couldn't help but think back that many may not know that in my previous professional life, I was somewhat of a union rep for the judges. Yes. No, yes. No. Hold on. So I departed at the level of the parish court, and I worked. The higher judiciary has a special mechanism through the independent commission for the settling of their salary. we're still to sort out the status of the parish court judges constitutionally, and that is one of the reform items. And for the legal officers who fall under the Legal Officer Staff Association, for my entire time in those offices, I worked on, I was president of the Legal Officer Staff Association, I was president of the Association of Resident Magistrates, and I lobbied significantly for improved conditions of service for legal officers. And as I listened to the concerns raised and what has been reported in the report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, I couldn't help but think how unfortunate it is that we are at this place. It's really unfortunate. It didn't happen overnight. And I think when the compensation reform is completed, Minister Clark probably will go down in history for making it happen. It's been challenging, not because it hasn't been tried or attempted, but it has taken more fortitude than one could imagine. And so while I'm displeased that, as at now, the parliamentary group is still in the dark, I trust the minister's judgment. I trust his judgment. And, you know, trust and distrust work in interesting ways, Madam Speaker, because when you trust, it's not that you trust blindly, but you understand the mission at hand, and it is by no means easy. But I think that we pass the laws. We pass the laws and we determine a lot here in the Parliament, and we underestimate what we can do collectively about the issues that are raised. So I heard about compensation needing greater level of transparency. I have to point out that every year the salaries of persons who work in the government of Jamaica in central government offices are published in the Civil Service Establishment Order. They're published every year. All right? So the scale for parliamentarians also is not a secret. It's not a secret because there is a scale that you get, the scale for the judiciary. But I say that to say, I just say it in response, because it behooves us to be, you know, to just know what is there and where to look to find the information, because the matters are all connected in one way or the other. But, Madam Speaker, I really hope that this is the last time we find ourselves in this position. I mean, as much as I trust the minister, I really understand the sentiment that we should not be here where we don't know. And on top of it, I know the minister was trying his best to have the payments out done on this side of the calendar, way ahead of the end of the financial year. But because of what is happening with some of the other groups, So, Madam Speaker, let the minister, I want the minister to know that notwithstanding that he enjoys our trust, we're still not very pleased as at this stage. And we hope that sooner than later, this matter of our remuneration will be settled.
Madam Speaker, ask that the motion be approved.
Just before I put the motion to the House, I cannot allow the opportunity to pass as Speaker to say that it is with pride that I put this motion to the House. And I want Jamaica, the entire Jamaica, to know that all parliamentarians on either side of the House stand together on the motion and the fact that we are asking that drivers and secretaries be properly considered in this matter. And I will go further to say the minister just said she trusted the Minister of Finance's judgment. I hope I will sit here when all parliamentarians on both sides of the House will openly and unreservedly agree when it comes to the salaries of parliamentarians, because Jamaicans, by and large, think that parliamentarians are washed in government funds, which by and large is not so. And Jamaicans do not recognize that the job of a parliamentarian never ends. If something happens at 12 in the night, you are the first port of call. And if it happens early in the morning, again, you are the first port of call. And we are expected to respond. And when you do not respond, people await you at the polls because you did not respond. It is a job for a caring person, but it is a job that has no time limits on it. So I really hope, because this is a signal moment in this parliament, and so often, for some reason, we shy away from speaking exactly how we do feel and speak about it behind closed doors. So I'm very happy this evening to put the motion to the House in relation to what is before the PAAC, and to ask that the Minister be assured that we are expecting him to deal with our drivers and our secretaries. And I trust, as parliamentarians, I will sit here again when we address the salaries of all of us who serve as parliamentarians. So having said that, I now put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. And those against? No dissenting. Member, the motion has been carried.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move for the recommittal of the item notices of motion given orally, so as to allow the Minister of Finance to present the motion with regards to the supplementary estimates. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Members, the question before the House is that we recommit the item on the agenda, notices of motions given orally. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I'll move, be it resolved that the second supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023, which was laid on the table of the House on the 6th day of December 2022, be referred to the Standing Finance Committee of the whole House of Representatives, consisting of all members of the House, for consideration and report. And be it further resolved that the committee, during its deliberations, take into account the recommendations contained in the report of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House of Representatives on its deliberations on the secondary supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023, which was laid on the table of the House on the 7th day of December 2022. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I'll move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Members, and we now revert to the item public business on the agenda. Public business.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
The question is that the standing orders be suspended to allow the Minister to take the motion, notice of which he gave earlier.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, I'm going to just ask that the motion be approved, but it would be remiss of me not to say that I've heard my colleagues in Parliament, and just repeating the principle that was outlined yesterday. The principle is that we reach agreement with the people we serve first, and after that, we have dialogue with parliamentarians. I think it's a principle that we can all agree on, ought to be the principle that we abide by for this process. But the concerns are noted, listen, take in note. And as far as the drivers are concerned, absolutely, they're definitely top of the list, and the adjustment for drivers will be significant. So I just want to give you that assurance. Speaker, I ask that the motion be approved.
Members, the question before the House is that the motion be approved. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. The motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of the sitting of the House to allow for the Standing Finance Committee to be convened to consider the second supplementary estimates. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Members, the question of the House is that the House do suspend to facilitate the holding of the Standing Finance Committee. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. This House is now suspended. Can I ask Member Morrison to offer a word of prayer as we start?
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for today. Father, we thank you for this opportunity where we are gathered to discuss the business of your country. Father, give us the vision, the inspiration. Enable us that whatever decision we will make, it will be for the full benefit of your people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Members, you would have remembered that on the 6th of December this year, 2022, the House of Representatives, by resolution, referred the second supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023, to the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House of Representatives for consideration and report. The committee's report, along with the second supplementary estimates of expenditure for the year ending March 2023, is now before us for consideration. We are ready to start our deliberations, and I ask the Leader of the House to inform us how we will proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to indicate that this is a routine matter, the Minister of Finance will lead off now, and then response from the opposition spokesman, and the very swift, I think, Madam Speaker, perusal of the estimates will ensue and completed. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Chairman, I don't have any opening remarks. I would ask, if there are no questions, that the book, there are amendments that have been circulated, only 2 amendments, and those amendments don't change the quantum of the supplementary figures. There were just some numbers that were left out of 2 of the pages, and that have been included. But the totals on the pages and the totals overall remain the same. So, Madam Chair, if there are no questions, I'd like to put the second supplementary estimates as amended to the committee.
Madam Chair, the opposition doesn't have any issues with what is being proposed. I asked questions yesterday. I don't intend to go through that again today. I don't know if any of my colleagues have questions, so I think you can put the entire book for approval.
So is it the guidance of the House Leader that we do the heads, go through each head quickly?
Absolutely, Madam Speaker, that we could put the entire book with the amendments for the committee to vote on.
You don't wish to do the heads?
No, well, you could just go through head 1 through 10,000 to the end, you know.
Members, the question before the House is that we put the heads beginning with head 1,000 straight through to, yes, head 72,000 C. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it with the amendments, the 2 amendments that were placed there. Are we all agreed? Those in favor? The entire book? Yes. Members, the report is now before me as chairman. Is it your wish that I should sign the report? Those in favor? The ayes have it. Okay. Members, we're going to we crave your indulgence for a few minutes so that it can be printed. Are we okay? Yes. Members, the Standing Finance Committee is now adjourned. Sine die. This Honourable House now resumes its sitting.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the following items be recommitted: announcements, reports from committees, and notices of motions given orally. Madam Speaker, I beg to ask too that a moment be allowed for the report to be printed and put before this Honourable House in order for the Clerk of the House to commence the announcement, because that's the first item. So I would ask for a further suspension of 5 minutes to allow for this.
Members, the question before the House is that we do suspend for approximately 5 minutes to allow for the printing of the report and for it to be tabled. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House is suspended.
Remember that big project the government announced them was going to from when? You ever catch yourself and wonder what happened to it? Stop wonder like an outsider and start move like the country belong to you. You have a right to publicly owned information, and the Access to Information Act gives you that power. I know you have enough questions about how government are run or not run, so let me show you how it works. Say mosquito spraying going on in your community, your children asthmatic and you want to know what chemicals are in it. Or what about that Auditor General report on a public official getting twice his salary with no proper approval? Is your taxes and you want to know if they paid it back? First, do some basic searching to see what is already on government websites. If you don't see what you're looking for, make a formal ATI request by completing the application form on the ATI site or sending a letter or email. And remember, you don't have to say why you need it. It is your right to know. Make sure you send your request to the right agency, and once they confirm receipt, they get 30 calendar days to provide the information, a maximum of 60 if extra time is needed. Yes, I know you want access to everything, but sensitive documents are protected from the public for up to 20 years. For example, documents that would expose a citizen's personal privacy, or those dealing with cabinet discussions, the Governor General's office, or information on the investigative activities of the security forces. Any public officer who tries to destroy or hide any official document can be sanctioned. And if you're having difficulties, the ATI unit will help. So, what if the chemicals in the mosquito spray are toxic? What if the agency did not even try to get back the money they paid out? Call or email your MP. Share the concern, because as your elected representative, they can represent your questions to the government ministers in the House. Remember, it is the job of parliamentarians to monitor and hold the government to account on your behalf. Is not every country gives citizens this kind of power, you know? And at 20 years we have this law, and we barely use it. So access information and mind your business, Jamaica. Visit jampja.org today to see what information we access to make it easier for you to hold the government to account. Let's do our job to make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
Crime is Jamaica's #1 threat. As we stay apart while working together to fight COVID-19, we must all live good and unite against crime and violence in Jamaica. Live good means talk it out, don't fight it out. We must live good to build a safe Jamaica. Stay home, stay safe, live good.
What if they knew that you abused her, her family?
Mr. Jones.
And your colleagues, how will they look at an abuser? When the law comes knocking, you'll have nowhere to run.
Mr. Brown, you're under arrest. Please get up
Hands behind your head and interlock your fingers.
Turn your back on abusers. Report gender-based violence to the police. There's no excuse for abuse. Call the Bureau of Gender Affairs at 876-754-8577.
How many more must die because of reckless drivers? How fast is too fast? Make we take time, no man. Obey the rules of the road. Drive with care.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
One, two, three, two more. 1, 2. Adults to 30 minutes activity daily. Love your body, treat your body right. Vegetables, make sure you eat plenty. Children do 60 minutes activity daily. Drink some water when you feel thirsty. Cut down dessert and have a smoothie. Jamaicans, love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Just eat right. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. One more time now. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Just eat right. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Listen up. Make sure you know your health status. Go a doctor and get a regular checkup. Chronic disease can slowly creep up. We can lower the risk and live up if we just eat right and get moving. Jumping, running, dancing or skipping. Change the children, them lazy habit. Make them play out the door and put down the tablet. Jamaicans, love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Just eat right. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Jamaica get moving. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Just eat right. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. After 2, make me hear you say I love me. 1, 2. I love me. 1, 2. I love me. 1, 2. I love me. After 2, make me hear you say I love me. 1, 2. I love me. 1, 2. I love me. 1, 2. Jamaicans, love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Just eat right. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. One more time now. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Just eat right. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Jamaica get moving. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Just eat right. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. One more time now. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Just eat right. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right. Listen up. Love your body, treat your body right. Love your body, treat your body right.
Let's be clear. Tobacco use is associated with several cancers, lung and heart-related diseases. Smoking harms nearly every organ in the human body and contributes to impotence, impaired vision, bad breath, discolored fingernails, and teeth. E-cigarettes, e-cigs, or electronic
Resumes its sitting now. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the following items recommitted: announcements, reports from committees, and notices of motions given orally.
Members, the question before the House is that the items on the agenda, noted announcements, reports from committees, and notices of motions given orally be now recommitted. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Announcements.
Also laid on the table of the House today are copies of the report of the Standing Finance Committee of the whole House of Representatives, consisting of all members of the House, on the second supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending March 31, 2023.
Reports from committees.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the report of the Standing Finance Committee of the whole House of Representatives, consisting of all members of the House, on the second supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023.
Notice of motions given orally.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I'll move, be it resolved that the report of the Standing Finance Committee of the whole House of Representatives, consisting of all members of the House, on the second supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending March 31st, 2023, which was laid on the table of the House on the 7th day of December 2022, be adopted. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I'll move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Business.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
Question before the House that there's a suspension of the standing orders to enable the minister to take the motion, notice of which he gave earlier. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, it's not my intention to speak on the motion except to offer, on behalf of all public sector employees, in particular civil servants, thanks to the chairman of the PAAC for accommodating the efficient hearing of the PAAC to consider the second supplementary estimates, and to all members of the PAAC, some of whom represent rural constituencies who came in. And I wanted to express thanks and gratitude to them. And I think Jamaica should know, Madam Speaker, that the cooperation that we have witnessed today has nothing to do with parliamentarians being a part of the second supplementary estimates. Jamaica should know that when I talk about a December to remember for civil servants, but it's not for parliamentarians. Parliamentarians have to wait until others are dealt with. And I think that's a good sign. The cooperation and the urge to get it done is not motivated because we are a part of it. It's motivated because we are all here to serve the people of Jamaica. So again, I express thanks, Madam Speaker, and after the opposition, I will ask that the motion be approved.
Members,
Madam Speaker, as I indicated, the opposition is supportive of the third supplemental. We don't have second. You say I'm preempting you because I know a third will come as well. And we'll cooperate in the same way. And colleagues on both sides have very accurately articulated the concerns of the support staff and ourselves. So I'm not going to repeat that. So we look forward to those civil servants who have been waiting to be paid in December.
I think the words of the member from the opposition is saying that coming events casting their shadows while you missed and said what you said. Coming events casting their shadows when you said the third supplementary.
I know, Madam Speaker, that members here want that they're included in the third. Let's see. Let's hope so. Madam Speaker, I ask that the motion be approved.
Members, the question before the House is that the motions be approved. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Once again, the Jamaican Parliament has acted together in the interest of the Jamaican people, minus ourselves as parliamentarians.
Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated to do any further business for the day. I therefore invite you to adjourn the House until Tuesday, December 13 at 2 p.m. at the George William Gordon House. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
The question for the House is that we do adjourn until next week, Tuesday, the 13th of December, 2022 at 2 p.m. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This House is now adjourned.